Let me introduce you to a spirit that I had found at the thrift store. Spirit doll, I should say. I had found him when I walked into the thrift store Savers, and immediately when I saw him, I was just like, oh my god, there's someone in there. This video will be posted onto my YouTube channel, and if you are new here, I am a witch and I have been practicing for roughly 7+ years now. I am so upset because right when I stopped to collect myself, there was an orb that showed on my screen from right here, went down, and whoop! Ah, I wish I caught it. Anyways, so it was explained, I went to a thrift store. This was, I think, like a year ago now, and I went to Savers, and you know, there was this doll. It was a really tall doll, and I was like, oh my god, as soon as like I stepped into the door and I saw it immediately, I knew there was a spirit attached to it. When I usually look for things that are haunted, you know, I usually have a spirit friend with me or one of my spirit guides, and the one that I had in particular with me that day, he immediately said that, yeah, there is something in that doll. And he said, take it home with you. And I was like, why? And he told me that despite the type of energy that I'm picking off of it, that he can be beneficial as an aid to the spirit family and also with my practice. So I was like, okay. And you know, when I picked him up, I held him throughout the whole store when me and my family was shopping, so I can connect to the energies and see what type of spirit it was. Also, this is how he looks. He's a very tall doll. But this is who I am talking about. So when I was connecting to the energies of him, it was very, very heavy. And when my mom even came in contact with it, it was giving her a headache. It was kind of giving me a headache. Which I guess in a sense is not really a good thing when it comes to a spirit. But I am very open-minded in my practice. And I trusted my spirit guide friend. I call them friends. But I trust him because he's usually right about everything. And, you know, I was like, okay, you know, I'll take him home. But I was also trying to lay down some ground rules as to what's going to happen when I adopt him, if he's okay with that. Now, there was another clown doll that was there. They weren't together. He was on a stand, and I actually cut him off that stand because he didn't like how he was standing on a stand, or he didn't like how his vessel was. And the other doll, he wanted me to adopt him to save him, and it was a jester doll as well, but he was the kind that was like bald, and you know, I wasn't sure. I wanted to deal with him first to see if I could handle him before even trying to get to. Regardless, I ended up bringing him home, and you know, I was still trying to communicate with him, talk with him, and it's something kind of made me realize that he had more or less like just aggression for some reason. And my spirit friend, he ended up wanting to help him through that aggression because it was more or less that he saw that they were similar in a sense. So I ended up giving him an amethyst crystal to wear on him to help calm him down and to help him during his workings with that spirit friend. I also had put a cross on him that I blessed and, you know, anointed just in case, because when I tell you his energy was so freaking heavy, like, it was kind of sickening. I guess for a better term, it was very intimidating. Like, he wanted to do something, and not in a good way. However, when I was still communicating with him and talking to him, it seemed more or less like he didn't mean to be that way, but that was just the energy and vibe that he just kept constantly giving off when he was being respectful and everything to our communication. Something interesting happened during the day that I did bring him home though, and that was, it was late at night. my mom noticed that one of our lights behind our door, she had like a little shrine there behind our front door. And she had LED lights on, and one of the lights over there was flickering in a way that it shouldn't had. And we were thinking like, oh, well, maybe the battery's dying. And, you know, as soon as I had said that, I had a bag on my door, and it sounded like someone, like, you know, hit it. And I looked, and he was standing near my door too, on his stand, because that's where I had placed him originally when I was trying to communicate with him. And I was like, oh, and I felt this huge gust of just cold air. And I was like, okay, that was definitely him. So later on that night, I ended up trying to communicate with him again, and, you know, trying to fight through that energy, that vibe. And it was interesting because when I was like trying to communicate with him and stuff, I felt a hand pressed down onto where my leg was. Since I'm sitting crisscrossed, I felt like a hand, like it literally felt like a hand that pressed down. And, you know, I figured that was him, but we discussed a little more stuff. I gave him the in and outs of my place, what I expect him not to do in respects of me and my other spirit friends and my family. However, I will say this is my very first spirit doll. Like, I have spirit vessels, but they're more or less jewelry based. I fell in love with him, I'm not gonna lie, because I really love his character. I love his colors. I like the clown. I love everything. But I will not lie, I think I tripped out a lot more with him than I would like to admit. Because there were some nights when I was asleep, I felt someone press down into my bed very close to me. That woke me up. I thought I saw an actual full-blown apparition of him standing in front of my doorway. There's a lot of things that happened. When I did contact him too, it seems more or less like it could be a trickster. I still have yet to work with him a little bit more, but he seemed more or less like an elemental spirit, and, you know, also kind of like one of those shadow beings, but like with bright red eyes and like really sharp teeth. I'm trying to condense this down as best as I can, but if I can, I'll make a part 2. But that's how he looked. And then he had another form, which is more or less his more humanistic form. And honestly, he reminded me a lot of like the guy Coffee from the Green Mile because of how tall and stocky he was. And I did try drawing him. This is how his human form looked to me. And I mean, by tall, he was freaking tall. And I feel like he might have picked this vessel because of the type of spirit that he is. But yeah. He didn't seem like he's really like bad per se. Like, he can be both bad and good. And it's kind of funny because a few days ago I could have sworn that I saw him in one of my dreams when I was hanging out with my other spirit friends, lucid dreaming. At first, I will say I kind of thought that he was demonic. And I mean, he could be. I mean, I'm saying that in a more negative term because I know people wouldn't believe me if I said there's good, like, demonic people or entities. But, you know, in short term, I thought that he was not good. Not someone that you really want to have around because of how much headaches he would give you, how much heavy energy he had. Like, it really made you uneasy. His energy is no longer like that anymore, and sometimes I get a little worried that he maybe decided to leave, you know, go to a different vessel. But every now and then he still lets me know that he is here because I have one of these that I will put onto his lap that he'll light up every now and then. I have a puppet I made for him, technically for spirits in general, but I decided to give it to him to give him energy and to help feed him because there's herbs and crystals in here that I also anointed and put a sigil in there. And I also gave him a chocolate because he seemed to have liked it sweets. He does seem like a bit of a trickster spirit, but I am happy to have him. He is still very nice and respectful. I figured I'd make another part 2 just explaining him. Also simply just showcasing him because look at his vessel. It's so nice. I love his eyes. That's what caught me the most, is because if you look really close at them, there's a filter that I have on it, tried going onto him, but his eyes look very human-like. He is cracked. He was like that when I bought him. He is missing a pinky on his hand too. But like, you guys, his vessel's gorgeous. It is so nice. It does seem like he loves being held. I had posted about him on my Tumblr page, and it kind of got to the point where I wasn't sure if I was actually able to handle him. Like, I was asking people in my posts that, you know, if you feel drawn to him, you go ahead, you know, get in contact with me. We'll try to sort something out. Which, honestly, it made him sad because he knew how his energy was. He didn't mean for him to give that type of impression. At least when I was contacting him, you know, trying to get to know him more. It didn't seem like he meant that at all. And, you know, it kind of got to a point where, like, you know what? Maybe I could go back to go get his other friend. And when I tried doing that, his friend was gone. I felt bad because I was thinking, like, well, maybe since, you know, 2 days passed, surely it's still there. I was wrong. I was very wrong. But, you know, I felt bad for that, and I was just like, you know what, I'll still give you a chance, because you know, despite your energy and everything, you do seem genuinely, what would you call it? Like, just genuine. And my spirit friend that ended up helping him through his aggression and stuff, which I think is why he doesn't have that really heavy energy anymore. He's really pleasant to be around now. I don't mean that in a bad way. But just, you know, my mom and my brother, they don't get headaches around him anymore. I don't get headaches around him anymore. It doesn't really feel like I'm suffocating. But he still shows that he is still around. So yeah. And whoever, if there is anyone that's saying like, oh, you know, is he for sale? No, he's not. He's mine. I am happy that I still stuck with him and got to know him more. I still have a lot more to learn about him. I call him N for short because of the name that he gave me. I'm not going to share his whole name, but I call him N. E-N. Ian? I could have just called him Ian. I just realized that. But I think his form, it does change quite a bit also, his humanistic form, but the shadow form of him, I'm pretty sure would scare a lot of you guys, because it looks pretty traumatizing, especially because of how tall his shadow self is. I don't know if it's like an actual shadow entity, or, you know, he's just like an elemental of some sort. That's what I was getting, that he was an elemental. That he is not actually a human spirit in here. Although I could be wrong, there's always a possibility of that. But, yeah. Maybe I'll try to make some videos talking more about him and maybe trying to communicate it with him. Also, I don't know if anyone else experiences this with other demons or demonic entities that they have friends with and so forth, but 2 of mine are scared of heights for some reason. He's scared of heights, and I mean, it could be a reason why, because like he is cracked, maybe that's why, but he does not like heights. You have to make sure you're holding him pretty well when you're like moving him, transporting him, things like that, because he gets nervous and uneasy. You'll start to kind of feel like a panic energy with him. So yeah, I even made him a hat because I kept like seeing a hat on him that like looked like this, but like he didn't come with a hat when I first got him, so I just crocheted him one. So yeah,